Hey everybody, real quick, if you need a recap of The Last of Us Season 1, I've got you covered. Just hit the tab in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you right to it. Now, Season 2 picks up 5 years after the events of Season 1. Ellie and Joel are cemented as important figures of Jackson, Wyoming. At this point, Ellie is 19 years old. She goes off on patrols. She trains with her friends in hand-to-hand combat. And she's really coming to her own as an adult, even though she's still a teenager. As for Joel, he's the foreman on a bunch of projects around town. He's in charge of building new developments because every day Jackson is getting more and more refugees in, and they're running out of space. Unfortunately, though, something happened in the 5 years between Season 1 and Season 2 between Ellie and Joel. To say they're estranged would be kind of an understatement. Their relationship is completely fractured. So much so that when Dina, Ellie's best friend in town, goes to tell Joel that there's an issue with one of the projects they're working on, they cut into the sewer pipe and it's just nothing but dead weeds. It looks like tree roots. But she goes from that and segues into exactly what he did to Ellie, because it's pretty clear to her, at least, that Ellie hates him. And he asks her, wait, did Ellie say that? And Dina says, no, it just seems obvious. I mean, what went down? At first, Joel just chalks it up to the fact that she's a teenager. She's 19 years old. These things are going to happen. She's going to rebel, and he can be a hard ass. But then he gets really deep with Dina and asks her, I mean, I get it, she's frustrated, but what did I do? Even though Dina's her best friend, she has no idea. And Joel shrugs his shoulders and says, yeah, well, I can't hold myself responsible for the emotions of others. And that tips off Dina to the fact that Joel must be seeing the town therapist, Gail. And at first, Joel says, no, I'm not in therapy. But as Dina leaves, he tells her, hey, do me a favor, don't tell anybody that I'm in therapy. Meanwhile, Ellie went to go train with a sniper rifle and a scope with Tommy. They're just picking off infected one by one. He mentions, though, how they should probably get back into town, and she thinks she's going back on patrol, but Tommy says, no, you're on wall duty. And he tries to talk it up like it's a really important job, but to Ellie, it's a boring job. It's not important. She can't figure out why she's not going on a patrol. And Tommy reminds her, well, the last time you did go on a patrol, you kind of went rogue, and there are rules against this, and oh, by the way, Joel's worried about you. And the fact that Joel is worried about her just pisses her off. She pesters Tommy nonstop until finally he simply gives in and says, fine, I'll put you on a patrol, but you have to listen to your leader. When they get back into town, Ellie goes to her house, and Tommy goes to visit his brother, who is coincidentally having a conversation with Maria about productivity. Maria, being the mayor, wants Joel to speed up productivity, build new houses. They're running out of room, and everyday refugees show up, and Joel proposes the idea of not allowing refugees in, taking care of your own. Maria's a little turned off about Joel's cavalier attitude to this, just leaving people in need out in the cold. And she does remind Joel, hey, at one point, you were also a refugee. But Joel's already stressed out enough as is, not just with the job because he's working day and night trying to build new areas, but also with his relationship with Ellie. When he leaves the office, he goes for his next therapy session with Gail. It's her birthday, and boy, is she enjoying it. She's already started day drinking. And because of that, she has a little bit of liquid courage. Joel starts out the session saying how he took her advice. He gave Ellie some space. He let her move out in the garage, even though he regrets it. And none of it is working. He can't figure out what to do. And that's when that liquid courage kicks in with Gail. She says, no. There's something you're not telling me. You must have done something to her. And there's something that you're just neglecting to mention. You can tell that Gail has listened to the same sob speech from Joel for a few sessions at this point, and she's just tired of it. She's giving him the tough love treatment. She tells him, you can't heal something unless you're brave enough to say it out loud. No, I need to say this out loud. You shot and killed my husband. You killed Eugene, and I resent you for it. I hate you for it. And I've tried to forgive you, but I can't. And I know you had no choice. I know that. But I can't forgive you because of how you did it. I mean, just looking at your face sitting in our home, it makes me so angry. So there it is. It's out in the air. I can't take it back, and I'm ashamed. But maybe now you want to tell me what happened. What did you do? But Joel doesn't tell her. He just stands up, he looks her in the eye, and he says, "I saved her." And then he leaves. As for Ellie, who is back at their house, albeit their garage, she gets a knock at the door, and it's Dina, because Dina's going on the same patrol. They both hop on the horses, and they go to meet the rest of the patrol, 3 other people, and they get the rundown from the guy who seems to be in charge, a guy named Jesse, who tells them, this is just a recon patrol. If you see a straggler, you can just let him go. It's fine. And then the group heads out. Ellie and Dina kind of hang back, and they make chit-chat. There's a party going on that night for New Year's 2029. And it seems like it's a whole town event. Everybody's going, so Dina asks Ellie, hey, are you going? Because Ellie's awkward. And Ellie tells her she's going, but she's not going with anybody. Dina thought she might be going with this girl named Kat, who is ironically on the run together with them. After all, Kat is the only other lesbian in town, but Ellie says, no, I'm not going with her. So Dina says, why don't you go with me? I mean, we can be friends and hang out and get baked and dance. It'll be fun. And that's surprising to Ellie because she thought Dina and Jesse were a thing, but Dina says, no, that's over. Again. They then, though, come upon a bunch of bloody snow, and Kat thinks they should turn back around and report it, but both Ellie and Dina are like, nope, let's keep going. Let's do that recon thing. And a little bit down the road, they come across a supermarket that has clearly been attacked. You've got dead infected outside, about 6 of them, and you've got a dead grizzly bear. And that's something that they haven't seen before. They start wondering, how many infected does it take to take down a grizzly bear? Well, I guess we got our answer. But that's when Ellie notices that one of them probably got back into the grocery store, and there might be people still inside. It's around this time where Kat and the rest of the patrol catch up, and they're imploring Ellie and Dina to turn around, but the 2 girls are stubborn, and they say, no, let's go in for 5 minutes. Let's check it out. I mean, there could be survivors in there. And even though Kat and the rest of the group do not believe that there are survivors in there, they're going to give them at least 5 minutes. That's when Ellie and Dina head inside. Ellie does kill her first clicker. Seems like this is going normal until Ellie falls to the floor. From up top, Dina makes sure she's okay, and Ellie says, yeah, nothing's broken. And then Dina says, okay, I'll come down and we'll get you out of there. But as Dina makes her way down, Ellie starts making her way around the grocery store, through the aisles, unaware of the fact that she is being stalked by an infected. Eventually, Ellie catches on to the fact that she might not be alone in this grocery store, so she arms herself, and that's when the infected shows itself. Ellie screams at this infected, run at me, so Ellie can shoot it, but the infected doesn't do that. It actually runs away. And when Ellie runs to find it, she finds nothing. The infected is hiding. Ellie slowly starts to make her way through the grocery store, head on a swivel, trying to catch this thing, but she can't. And that's when this infected slowly makes its way out of the hiding spot and attacks Ellie. It's a good thing Ellie is immune, because Ellie is bit before she's able to take a revolver out and kill this infected stalker. But she's pretty spooked about the whole thing. And about 5 seconds later, that's when Dina shows up. Impeccable timing by Dina. Ellie never reveals to Dina that she got bit. But what they do is, as soon as they get back into town, they meet with the town council, and they tell them all about this new evolved infected. Ellie explains how this thing was mature. It was intelligent. I mean, it wasn't going to do algebra, but it lured her in, much like they would lure a normal infected in. Ellie seems a bit shook by it. It's something for the town council certainly to think about, but the other thing to think about is the fact that it is New Year's Eve, they do have a party to get to, and alcohol isn't going to drink itself. Before she heads to the party, Ellie starts cutting the bite mark in her stomach. She stitches it up, and then she heads to the gathering. And she's fine being a wallflower. She's just chilling in the back, watching Dina have the time of her life. She's joined a little while later by Jesse, who mentions how he hates these things, and Ellie feels the exact same way. But both of them are watching Dina, and considering Jesse and Dina were a thing, Ellie feels compelled to tell Jesse, you guys will be back together pretty soon. But Jesse looks at her and says, nah, not this time. And before Ellie can get clarification on that, Dina comes up and grabs her and drags her onto the dance floor. And at this point, the mood in the room has changed from dancing songs to slow songs. So the 2 girls start slow dancing. Ellie is horrible at picking up on the fact that Dina is hitting on her. She starts saying how everybody in the room is jealous of Ellie, implying that they're jealous of Ellie because they're dancing with Dina. Dina is, after all, extremely popular. Ellie all the while denying that anyone would be jealous of her. But that's when Dina kisses her. That's probably why Jesse said, "No, I don't think we're getting back together this time." The two start lightly kissing on the dance floor when a guy named Seth breaks it up and says, "Whoa, girls, this is a family event." And he's just staring at them. And at first, Dina says, "Well, I'm sorry." But then, because Seth keeps staring, she's like, "Look, we said we're sorry, all right?" And they go to leave. And that's when Seth calls them a derogatory term. Ellie turns around to take exception to it, but Joel, who was also at the party, heard it, and he pushes Seth down, causing a big scene. Joel, who thought he was coming to Ellie's defense, turns to her and says, "Are you all right?" But Ellie makes a fool of Joel, embarrassing him in front of the entire town by screaming, "What the hell is wrong with you? What don't you get? I don't need your help." And it forces Joel to just leave, embarrassed. Ellie gets home a little while later, and she sees Joel outside on the porch playing her guitar, but the two don't speak. The town, though, is unaware of the fact that they have two threats. One silent, one not so silent. The silent threat is coming from the pipes that were filled up with those roots. Those roots have something in it, growing, and no one seemed to notice. The bigger threat is from people. Because 5 years ago, when Joel did what he did in Salt Lake, killing the fireflies and not letting them kill Ellie, while he thought he was doing the right thing, to others, he became a monster. He killed not only friends, but he killed family. And what was left of the Salt Lake City fireflies was led by a girl named Abby. While most of Abby's friends were depressed, they started looking for a new place to go. One of them, being a guy named Owen, mentions how there's a community in Seattle they might be able to go to. But for Abby, she's not about to head there before they find Joel. She wants to make Joel pay, because her dad was one of the people that Joel killed. So not only does she want to seek vengeance, but she wants to make Joel suffer as slowly as possible. And it's taken 5 years for Abby and her crew to track down Joel, but she's been able to do it. And she's on the outskirts of Jackson, waiting. In episode 2, Abby and her crew wake up the next day in this mountain house, and they're able to see Jackson from afar. They didn't realize when they arrived at night how fortified Jackson is, and a lot of the group is worried. Owen breaks down how difficult it is just to find Joel. The fact that they're going to need to penetrate a giant fence that is well fortified, that has guards roaming outside. And even then, if they're able to get into Jackson, they don't know where Joel is. But he can also tell from Abby's face that she didn't come all this way to just turn around and go the opposite direction. So he tells her, "You know what? I got a plan cooking. I just need to put it together. Give me some time." And she says, "Great. Well, I'll buy you some time. I'll go on patrol. I'll be back in a little bit." And when Abby leaves to go on patrol, the rest of the group, which includes Mel, who seems to be the medic, Manny, and Nora, they walk up to Owen and they're like, "Hey, you really do have a plan?" And he says, "Yeah, my plan is to convince her to go back to Seattle. Because if anybody dies up here, it's going to be us." Now, over at Jackson, they're just waking up for the day, much like Abby and her crew. For Ellie, she wakes up to a knock at the door from Jesse, who lets her know that they're going on 8 a.m. patrol. She's not too happy about it at first, but then she remembers what happened the previous night with her and Dina. And the fact that Dina and Jesse used to be a thing, it gets a little awkward, but Jesse says, "Yeah, you know what, don't worry about it. It's fine. I don't really care." As they make their way through the town, though, it becomes clear to Ellie that something's going on. It's as if they're getting ready for battle. Jesse lets her know that the town is now on high alert. That's because a group went out and they discovered a bunch of frozen infected, but then a few of them popped out underneath the frozen infected, about 30 of them. This patrol came back and let those that were in charge know about the situation, and then people went out and handled it. But now it seems the infected are using their own dead bodies as insulation. And Lord only knows how many other infected are underneath. It could only be 10, but it could also be thousands. So for the moment, Jackson is on high alert. He also tells her that you add in the fact that someone told a ghost story about infected who are really, really smart, and, well, it's got the town a little spooked. And Ellie, who is barely awake at this point, annoyed, tells him, you know what, I'm just going to do my patrol with Joel if that's all right. And he says, no, it's not all right, because that's the one person you've been avoiding like the plague. She shoots back, well, we're better now, all right? And he asks her, since when? I mean, as of last night. But she cuts him off and starts cursing him out, telling him to stop talking, but also realizing that she probably should explain herself a little bit. And she tells him, yeah, my relationship with Joel is complicated, and to the outside, it probably looks like we're constantly fighting. And you know what? It has been bad, but I'm still me, he's still Joel, and nothing's ever going to change that. So you can all stop talking about us and worrying about us. Jesse asks her, so you two hash it out? But then he quickly realizes that she doesn't want to talk about it. And she once again reiterates that she's going to go on patrol with Joel, but Jesse says, nah, he already left with Dina. He just didn't want to wake you. And by the way, Maria wants to talk to you, and no, I don't know what it's about. So they go to find Maria, and she's in one of the restaurants, but the restaurant is all looking at Tommy, who's making an announcement on what to do in case of an emergency. Yeah, it's just a drill, but he has to drill into these people exactly what they're supposed to do in case something happens. Once Tommy is done giving his speech, Maria walks Ellie and Jesse over to grab some food before they go out on patrol, but in reality, it's to talk to Seth, the guy who said that derogatory term the previous night to Ellie. And as soon as Ellie sees him, she wants nothing to do with him, but Maria makes her stay and listen to Seth's apology, which does seem sincere. But Ellie's got so much teen angst, her teen angst has a body count, and add Seth to that list. She doesn't seem to accept the apology. She grabs a sandwich, and she leaves with Jesse to go on patrol. The thing is, as the day goes on, the weather in Jackson is getting worse and worse. It's causing issues with the communication system. They're having trouble getting the radio signal far away, and Tommy gives the order to call everybody back to Jackson. For Ellie and Jesse, they're not going to be able to make it back to Jackson. They're just going to hunker down, and Jesse knows a place. It's an old convenience store that Eugene, his first patrol partner, showed him. But this isn't just any convenience store. It's where Eugene used to grow weed. At first, when Ellie asks Jesse about the weed, and he says Eugene's name, it gets awkward. You can tell that name just spooks Ellie right away. Walking around, though, she notices a Firefly tag, and it's got Eugene's name, and she didn't know Eugene was a reformed Firefly. And Jesse says, yeah, he was, at the very beginning, but he said he just got tired of killing people. Ellie doesn't say much, but you do get more insight as to what happened between Eugene and Joel. And it seems like whatever did happen, obviously Joel killed Eugene, nobody blames Joel for it. Everybody looks at it as something that Joel had to do. Eugene was a former Vietnam War vet who survived all of that, and something happened. And as Jesse puts it, Joel had no choice. But for Ellie, who has an opinion on everything, this one topic she stays quiet about. While those two hunker down, the storm hasn't hit Joel and Dina quite yet. They're on patrol, they're just making their way, but they are unaware of the fact that they are being watched and stalked by Abby. From a mountain ridge, she saw the two of them, and while she didn't know that it was Joel, she started to follow them. Unfortunately, she lost her footing, went down a cliff, and as she got her bearings together, she realized that she was surrounded by a bunch of frozen infected. But that situation that Jesse laid out to Ellie about the frozen infected using themselves as insulation, that ends up happening again. Because as Abby stands around, one by one, infected start crawling out of the snow. Abby has no choice but to run for her life as she's chased down by not just tens, but hundreds of infected. She's able to make her way to a wall and climb over it, so for the time being, she's good. But as she tries to find her way inside the building, the chain link fence that is separating her from the infected starts giving way, and one of the infected is able to get in. This infected attacks Abby, and it seems like it's only a matter of seconds before Abby is bit until she's saved by Joel. She's shocked that anybody was there to save her in that moment, but she's even more surprised when they get inside the building and she hears Dina say Joel's name. Here's the guy she's been looking for, and he just saved her life, but, she found him. You can tell that Abby is having trouble processing all of this, as Joel just questions if she's all right, if she's bit. And for Joel and Dina, it's just a matter of getting out of there, because they know it's only a matter of time before that infected busts the door. Joel is trying to figure out exactly where they can go, and that's when Abby says the mountain house. I've got friends there. They've got weapons. And with no other choice, they decide, yeah, okay, we'll head out. They get out of that building just in the nick of time as the infected bust through and continue to chase them down. And they're well on their heels. I mean, the horses are barely keeping up. But then something weird happens. The infected just bang a left. It's as if they got a signal to just let those two go, and they change targets. And they change targets to Jackson. Now, over at Jackson, most of the community is just busy doing their jobs, and that includes fixing those pipes. It's at this moment where one guy who is fixing the pipe notices there is something weird about those weeds. They're moving. But he doesn't have time to alert anybody because a bell goes off, a bell that warns everybody in Jackson to hunker down, take your positions, danger is approaching. For Tommy, he's one of the leaders of this. I mean, he's the guy that everybody's looking at to fortify Jackson. So everybody grabs their weapons, they take their positions, and they get ready for this horde of infected to attack. One of the ways they avoid getting overrun is by throwing barrels of gasoline down, shooting it, and then lighting that gasoline on fire. It causes a giant explosion, it kills a ton of infected, and at first, it seems like Tommy and the rest of Jackson are winning this war. Until once again, the infected get some sort of signal to just bang a left. It's super odd behavior, and that's when Tommy realizes they're not just going to attack this one area, they're going to find a weak point in our fence and they're going to bust through, and that's exactly what happens. Now, Tommy is able to alert a lot of people to this, so they are able to prepare, but one of the infected that's able to get in is a bloater. Tommy, armed up with a flamethrower, is on the ground. Most of the residents of Jackson are on the second level of buildings as they can have the high ground and just pick off infected one by one. Tommy's actually in the streets. And when he sees the bloater start to make their way towards his wife, he's able to distract the bloater and draw them into an alley. Now, this wasn't the plan originally, but Tommy just kind of puts his finger on that trigger of the flamethrower and hopes for the best, and it does end up working. I mean, in the nick of time, the bloater ends up dropping right in front of him. Tommy then makes his way out into the alley and continues fighting the rest of the infected that are still making their way in and attacking the residents. Now, as Jackson is fighting for their lives, Joel, Dina, and Abby from a mountain ridge can see in the distance that Jackson is under attack, and Joel wants to go and help. Abby can tell she needs to do something before she lets this guy just go back to his community, so she says, no, don't. I mean, we're so close to the mountain house, and my group has weapons. They can grab them, and we can all head there. And this works. Instead of going back to Jackson, Joel and Dina head to this mountain house, and they arrive. And for Owen and his gang, they're thrilled to see Abby back because they were worried about her. She was gone a long time. For Mel, the medic, she starts tending to Dina, who's got a little bit of frostbite. And Dina notices that Mel has this backpack with the letters WLF and a wolf logo. And she asks her, who are you guys? But she doesn't get an answer because Joel is frantically trying to get in touch with Jackson, but he's unable to. And as he tells the group, all right, you guys got 3 minutes, grab your weapons, let's get ready to go, Abby introduces everybody to her new friends. At first she says, yeah, the girl, that's Dina. This guy, he's Joel. That's when Manny grabs Dina and puts a gun to her head. Suddenly, Joel isn't worried about Jackson. He's worried about Dina, and he puts his hands up. At first, he thinks they're just being robbed. That's it, that these are raiders. But Abby laughs and says, do we look like raiders? No, we're not raiders. Abby orders Mel to knock out Dina using just a liquid. It'll knock her out for an hour. And then Abby starts having a conversation with Joel. She tells him, you answer this honestly and we'll let her live, meaning Dina. She asks him, when was the last time you saw the fireflies? And he's honest and says, Salt Lake. He's still a little perplexed and he says, I saved your life. And that's when Abby grabs a shotgun, shoots his kneecap, and says, what life? This is something that Abby's been waiting 5 years to do, and she is reveling in it. She walks over to Joel and she gets close to him and reveals who she is. She starts out by asking him, did you even count how many people you killed that day? Because you killed 18. You killed 17 soldiers and 1 doctor, and that doctor was my dad. And the nurses say, you didn't even think about him. I mean, you just shot him in the head and walked right by him. And Joel isn't defending his actions. He's not even saying a word. He, at this point, has accepted the fact that he's probably going to die here. She goes on to explain that she joined a militia in Seattle that trained them to follow a code. You don't kill somebody that can't defend themselves, but she's going to let that code slide for the time being. She then walks over to a golf bag, grabs what looks like an 8-iron, I'm not sure, and she starts beating the crap out of Joel. This continues. Abby just starts pummeling Joel with the golf club with her fists. Even for her own group, they're kind of mortified. They realize that this is what they've been searching 5 years for, but Abby's taking it to another level. Even Owen says, Abby, come on, just end it. But that's when they're joined by an unwanted guest. Because Jesse and Ellie, as they were hunkered down, got word that Joel and Dina hadn't checked in. They knew where Joel and Dina were headed, so they decided to separate, cover the area, and meet at that one location. Hopefully they would find the group. For Ellie, she didn't find Joel or Dina, but she found their horses at the cabin. And when she headed in, she heard some kind of commotion. When she opened the door, she saw that somebody was pummeling Joel. But before she could get a shot off, she was taken down and kind of apprehended. Ellie screams at Joel to get up. But Joel is a bloody pulp. He's barely surviving. He's clinging to life. But Ellie continues to yell, Joel, get up. And that's when Abby does, in fact, put an end to it. She picks up the broken golf club with its jagged edge, and she plunges it into Joel's skull, and Ellie screams. Ellie is forced to watch Abby murder the guy that she looked at as a father figure. And as Abby and her group leave, Ellie tells Abby, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill all of you. For Abby and her group, they head out. They got what they came for, and it seems like they're probably going to go back to Seattle, to that militia group. For Ellie, she has to wait for Dina to wake up. They are found by Jesse, and Dina, Jesse, and Ellie, they wrap up Joel's body, and they start taking it back to Jackson, where while it took a ton of damage and there were a lot of casualties, Jackson did in fact come out on top. In episode 3, the aftermath of the attack is felt all throughout Jackson. Tommy has to mourn the loss of his brother, and Ellie is dealing with night terrors about what she witnessed. But 3 months later, Jackson has persevered. They continue to rebuild the town, and Ellie is finally ready to leave the hospital. She does, however, have to talk to Gail. Gail has to give the okay that she is mentally able to leave after what she witnessed. And while Ellie initially gives the typical Ellie attitude speech, she realizes that that's not really going to get her anywhere, and she has to give Gail honest answers. So she admits, yeah, look, I miss him. He meant a lot to me. The one thing Gail does tell her is the fact that in her last meeting with Joel, he mentioned how something happened between the two, but he saved her. And the fact that he saved her, and yet it caused a rift, that didn't really make a lot of sense to Gail. And even though Ellie knows exactly what she's talking about, and she knows the reason why the two kind of weren't on the best terms, she doesn't reveal it. She kind of just plays dumb. She also tells Gail that that night, New Year's Eve, when she went home and she saw Joel on the porch, she probably should have said something, but she didn't. Which means that the last time she actually spoke to Joel, not counting the whole, telling him to get up, was when she lost her cool on him at that party. She gives Gail enough sufficient answers, though, that she allows Ellie to leave. The first place Ellie goes is home. It's the first time anyone's been in that home in 3 months. And when Ellie enters, she realizes just how empty it truly is without Joel. She goes upstairs and finds a box of what Joel had on him the day that he died, his last possessions. One of them being the broken watch, another one being his pistol. But then Ellie starts making her way around the room, and she ends up near Joel's closet. She can smell Joel, and that's when all the emotions start to hit her. She realizes just how much she does miss him, and she starts crying. But she has to wipe those tears away pretty quickly when she hears Dina yell for her downstairs. Ellie's able to collect herself. She goes downstairs. She greets Dina. She thanks Dina for coming to the hospital because I guess it was a pretty regular visit sort of thing. And then Dina says, hey, I made you cookies, but that's because I'm about to piss you off. Dina tells Ellie that she lied to her. She told her that she didn't know anything about the people that killed Joel when in reality, she knew a little bit about them. Mainly their names and where they were headed. And this does, in fact, piss Ellie off. She can't believe that Dina withheld this information, but Dina says, "You needed your rest, and I knew that if I told you, you would start ripping tubes out and try to go after these people immediately." And Ellie has to admit that that's exactly what she would have done. Ellie's really mad about the fact that she feels like they let these people get away. And Dina points out there was no group that was going to go after them anyway. I mean, we were burying dead for weeks. The town is still rebuilding. And by the way, if we know where they're going, we might as well let them get there first and then we'll go after them. Dina then starts talking about the logo she saw on Mel's backpack, WLF. She starts drawing it for Ellie, and she explains that Eugene had told her about these militia groups that would fight Fedra, one of them being the Washington Liberation Front. This is back when Eugene was a Firefly, and the fact that they haven't heard of the WLF since leads Dina to believe that they're probably not that big and they are susceptible to an attack. Now it's a matter of just finding people to go after them. Dina hasn't told anybody about this. The first person she told was Ellie. So the second person they're going to tell is naturally Tommy. And while they thought that Tommy would be all gung-ho to jump on a horse and head to Seattle, he's not. He tells them, "I got to think about this." And Ellie loses it, saying, "What's there to think about? I mean, if this were you, Joel would be halfway to Seattle by now." And Tommy gets pretty offended by that. He reminds Ellie that he was my brother. But people here, we're rebuilding. We can't just all jump on horses and head to Seattle. We have to do this thing the right way. We have to talk to the council. They have to have a meeting. Can't just go rogue on this, Ellie. It's the best kind of answer Ellie's going to get at the moment, so she has to accept it. But before she walks off, Tommy tells her, "Hey, we buried our dead about 10 miles outside of town if you want to go visit them." And Ellie says, "Yeah, I will, when we're headed to Seattle." Ellie is forced to just wait for the town council meeting, but in the meantime, she is also doing some hand-to-hand combat training. Most of the combat training she's been doing with Jesse. He's been helping her out. Now that she's back from the hospital, the combat training continues. In this particular instance, it's boxing. But once they stop the lesson, Ellie casually brings up the town council meeting, because Jesse is now on the town council. Ellie wants to know if she's going to have his support, but he doesn't really give her an answer. He just says he can't discuss it. Before he leaves, though, he does have a piece of advice. He tells Ellie, "Write down your thoughts, because the town council is not going to just vote yes on this. They need a reason to do so. And you're angry right now. And they're not going to vote yes for anger." So that's what Ellie does. She writes down her thoughts, and when the town council meeting kicks off, the entire town is there. It's way more packed than a normal town council meeting. Initially, there is some pushback on going to Seattle from a few members of the area. They all feel for both Tommy and Ellie in this moment. Everybody loved Joel. He was an integral part of the community, but they don't think it's worth it. Sending 16 of their best while the town still is recovering, what would happen if they were attacked? One woman in particular brings up the fact that she lost her sister in the attack. So it's not like people didn't lose people that day. But it's actually Seth, the guy that Joel pushed that night at the party. He stands up and he looks around and says, "What the hell is wrong with you people? These folk came into our house. They took one of ours and they killed him. And you guys want to sit back and forgive and forget? What do you think's going to happen? You don't think they're going to come back? They're absolutely going to come back, and they're going to laugh the entire time because we look weak. We need to go after these people. We need revenge. Can't sit back and let this happen. You all need to grow up and wake up." And this definitely takes Ellie by surprise. She didn't expect Seth to be on her side, but when Ellie stands up, her speech is a lot more calm and thought out, and that's because she did, in fact, take Jesse's advice. She pleads with the council and really everybody, but she pleads with the council to okay the trip to Seattle for justice. Not necessarily justice for her or Tommy or even Joel, but just justice for the town. She tells the council that whatever they decide, she will respect, but she does in fact think it's for the best that they go after these people and make them pay for what they did. After Ellie's speech, the town council does in fact vote. Unfortunately, with a vote of 8-3, The trip to Seattle does not pass. Ellie is pretty despondent. And for those that know Ellie, they know that it's going to be really difficult for her to just accept that. Sit back and let these people live happily in Seattle. So once the town council meeting convenes, Tommy goes and he finds Gail watching a Little League baseball game. And he talks to her about it. Because he knows full well that Ellie is not going to sit back. And he wants some advice. And Gail's advice is, don't really worry about it. She feels like Tommy is taking on the role that Joel had for Ellie when he doesn't need to. Ellie's 19 years old. And that was his brother's responsibility. It's not his. Ellie's going to do whatever the hell she wants, whether he says something about it or not. There's no changing her mind when her mind is made up. And boy, is that true. But Tommy and Gail aren't the only ones that know this. Dina knows it perfectly well. So that night, she heads to Ellie's, and at first Ellie plays dumb, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't come to the door right now. I'm about to go to bed." But Dina knows that that's complete BS. And when she finally is able to talk her way into Ellie's place, she sees that Ellie is packing up for a long trip. Ellie tells her, "Don't even try to talk me out of this." But Dina laughs and says, "Talk you out of it? I mean, have you even thought this out? Do you even have medical supplies? Do you even know where you're going? Do you even know how you're getting there?" The answer to all those questions is no. But Dina thought it out. She brought a map, she routed the course to Seattle, and she has a list of supplies because she's planning on going. She's not about to let Ellie just leave for Seattle on her own. She's planned this out way more than Ellie. They're going to travel light, and they're going to sneak out at 3 a.m. when nobody in the town is watching. They've also got a lot of supplies because Dina made a friend, and that friend is Seth. Now, even though it's been 3 months, Ellie still has an attitude towards this guy, even though he's helping her out. He gives her a better gun. He gives her supplies. He made sure that she'll be able to get out with the horse. And right before they do leave, Ellie and Seth seem to patch things up. They shake hands, and Ellie and Dina head out. Ellie also stayed true to her word. When she got 10 miles out of town, she visited Joel's grave, and it's really emotional for her. She's able to say goodbye before she hopefully goes off to make these people pay. For most of the trip, Ellie and Dina just chit-chat as they make their way towards Seattle. They do, however, one night talk about the elephant in the room, the fact that they kissed, and Dina's only curious about how it was for Ellie because, as Dina puts it, you're a lesbian and I'm not. And Dina gets super offended when Ellie rates her a 6 out of 10. I find that hard to believe as well. Ellie tells Dina, if you don't like it, you can go back to Jesse. And Dina says, "Oh, I already have." That then kicks off a conversation about Jesse with Dina asking Ellie, "Did you ever notice he's like always sad?" And Ellie says, "Yeah, I have actually. I mean, has he ever told you why?" But Dina says no. I think deep inside, that's just how he is. At least I hope that's why. Because if it's not that, then it's me. The next morning, the girls wake up. They continue to make their way towards Seattle. They're getting closer by the day. But then they come across a scary sight. 2 dead bodies in the middle of the road. The bodies have clearly been shot up. And the bodies are also wearing these jackets with these markings that they don't recognize. But then, right off the path, they notice there is a whole bunch of shot up bodies. Dina notices it first, and then Ellie goes down. And the thing that sticks out to Ellie is the fact that these people shot children. When she gets back to Dina, she says, if this was in fact Abby's group and they're shooting kids, then they deserve everything that's coming to them. What both the girls don't know is the fact that this group that they've come across that are dead, they're called Scars. They're a cult that literally will carve scars into their face. They travel and they follow a prophet who died 10 years ago. Their weapon of choice is a hammer, and they're a bit nuts. Now, that doesn't condone what the WLF did to them, but just gives some perspective on who these people are. A couple hours later, Ellie and Dina arrive on the outskirts of Seattle. It's super quiet, way more quiet than they're comfortable with, but now for them, it's just a matter of finding Abby and her crew. What they don't know is, even though the WLF hasn't been talked about in years, that crew is big. That crew is a legitimate army. It's a militia. And you've got 2 girls going up against an entire militia. In episode 4, the first place that Ellie and Dina go when they get in Seattle is a pharmacy. And it makes sense. They don't have a ton of medical supplies, so when you do pass a pharmacy, you might as well stop by and see if you can gather any supplies that you didn't previously have. Dina's the only one to go in, though, and she tells Ellie, I didn't really find much. They continue to go deeper into town, and it is dead quiet. But they also see things they've never seen before, like a tank. And it's becoming clear to them that Fedra was there, but Fedra was attacked. And it kind of looks like Fedra was attacked by Fedra. Either way, there's been a lot of fighting going on in this location. No doubt about it. As they continue to look around, though, Dina notices through her binoculars that there is a TV station with the words WLF written on the satellite dish. And right away, Ellie wants to go. She wants to investigate. But Dina convinces her that is a dumb move. For starters, if somebody is writing letters that big that you can see that far away, they want you to come. The second thing is, they're coming on horseback, and these people will likely have the higher ground, so they'll see them coming. So what Dina proposes is, they just wait until nightfall, and they sneak in, without the horse, on foot, and then they can investigate. But that's going to require them to kill a little bit of time. And they do that in a music store that they find. This is going to allow Ellie to show off a skill that she learned from Joel, playing the guitar. She finds a guitar lying around this music store, she picks it up, and she starts playing a-ha's Take On Me, an all-time amazing music video, by the way. But she starts serenading Dina all the while, and Dina is transfixed by Ellie playing the song. She never knew how good Ellie was at the guitar, and Ellie has to admit that it was all Joel teaching her. But once nightfall hits, these two hit the streets, and they head towards that TV station. And when they get outside, they do notice that there is a way in. There's a broken window. They're going to have to scale the building, but they do so as quietly as possible because they don't know what's waiting on the inside. What they find, though, is shocking. The first sign of danger is a body of a WLF soldier that's littered with arrows. And that's something that neither of them expected. But when they get into the lobby of the TV station, that's when they see the grand scale of violence that was awaiting them. Because there's probably 7 or 8 WLF soldiers that were hung and gutted, and they're just hanging from the ceiling. At first, they don't know who did this, but then Ellie's able to quickly figure it out when she sees a message written in blood on the wall that says, "Feel her love," with a symbol that she recognizes from the people that were killed in the woods. That's when she puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that the people that did this, the people that murdered these WLF soldiers, were the same people from the woods. As both Dina and Ellie are trying to make sense of what exactly they're going to do next, they hear a radio go off. Dina grabs the radio off a dead soldier, and they both figure out that one of these soldiers called for backup before they were killed. And that backup is about to arrive, so they need to hide. And sure enough, seconds later, after they hide, about 5 or 6 WLF soldiers come in and they see exactly what the Scars did to their comrades, and they're pissed. They want retribution. Whoever's in charge of the WLF soldiers tells the group, "I don't care who you find, kill them. We're not talking to Isaac about this. Search the entire building." And that's going to be trouble for Ellie and Dina, who realize at this point they're going to have to get the hell out of there. So quietly, they try to avoid the soldiers and find a way out. And Ellie is almost able to, until a soldier comes in her vicinity and she has to attack him. She jumps on him, she puts him in a headlock, but the commotion attracts more soldiers, and Ellie and Dina are barely able to escape the TV station. But these soldiers, who think that maybe Ellie or Dina are Scars, or maybe they just had something to do with the murders, they go after them. Ellie and Dina at this point just want to get the hell away from these people that are chasing them. So they start trying different doors and whatnot, and what they go into is a caved-in metro tunnel. Previously used for the subway in Seattle, but since everything that happened, it's been destroyed, basically. I mean, there's a couple of cars left down there and plenty of places to hide, but not exactly a place you probably want to spend a lot of time in. The problem is, one of the soldiers saw Dina and Ellie head into the metro tunnel. So they send everybody down there to go after them. Now, as I said, there's a lot of places to hide, so Dina and Ellie are able to do so. They're trying to just evade being captured at this point. Soldiers making their way down, throwing flares, trying to find these 2 people. But then another issue presents itself, because they start hearing clickers. They start hearing clickers and infected. And one of the soldiers actually mentions how that tunnel was supposed to be cleared out, but apparently not. Dina, meanwhile, is actually counting the different noises that she hears, trying to figure out how many infected they're going to have to deal with. But they get their answer when the infected burst through, and it's way more than 5. I'm talking a swarm of infected attack these soldiers. Suddenly, Dina and Ellie are the least of their problems. The soldiers are just trying to fight for survival, firing off round after round, trying not to get killed. But the infected, they don't care who exactly they're attacking, whether it be soldiers or whether it be Dina and Ellie, who they see and they go after. Dina and Ellie run for their lives. They get into one of the train cars. That gets pretty close, but they're able to get in, run through a couple of cars, and get out without being attacked. It seems like they're almost home free when they get up to the top of the subway, but the gate used for people to exit the subway is pretty rusted out, and it's causing Dina and Ellie to really strain to get through it. Ellie's ahead, and she basically is free, but she continues to push to get Dina free as well, and that's when Dina is almost attacked by one of the infected, and she would have been attacked had Ellie not thrown her arm in the face of the infected and gotten bit. On purpose, mind you. This allowed Dina to fire at the infected and kill them, and both girls were able to get out free, but the infected did take a nice bite out of Ellie's arm. Ellie, though, doesn't seem fazed, and that's because Ellie knows that she is immune. For Ellie, it's all about just trying to find a safe space to spend the night at this point, and she does find it. It's an old theater. She feels like that'll be a good place for both girls to lay low until morning, and they both head in. But Dina, who saw Ellie get bit, now realizes that she has a moral conundrum to deal with. She's going to have to shoot her friend. She can't wait for her friend to turn. So after both girls get situated in the theater, Ellie turns around, and she's got a gun pointed at her head. And she's able to put 2 and 2 together. Oh, yeah, you think that because I got bit in the arm. And she quickly has to explain herself to Dina, telling her, I'm immune. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, I'm immune. I'm going to go over, sit in that chair, and I'm going to bandage my arm, and I'm going to go to sleep. And you can point that gun at me all night, no matter how far away you want to be. But trust me when I say, when we wake up in the morning, I am going to be the same person. I'm going to be Ellie. And it does sound crazy to Dina, but she doesn't want to shoot her friend. So she listens to Ellie. She does it her way. She allows Ellie to bandage her arm and sleep in that chair. But in the middle of the night, Ellie wakes up. She's still got Dina pointing a gun at her, flashlight and all, and she shows Dina, look, I got bit hours ago. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I'm telling you, I'm immune. That was a secret that Ellie was keeping from Dina. And that's when Dina tells Ellie the secret that she was keeping from her. Dina, realizing that everything that Ellie said was in fact the truth, tells Ellie, I'm pregnant. And then the two just hook up. I mean, it's like, well, they really go at each other, you know? When they wake up the next morning, they decide to discuss both their secrets. Dina is still very surprised that Ellie is, in fact, immune. She notices that there is another bite mark on her arm, and Ellie says, yeah, that was my first one, and I burned my skin just to hide it. Dina then goes into her sexuality a little bit, telling Ellie that at one point when she was a kid, she told her mom that she liked boys and girls, but her mom said, no, you only like boys. So she suppressed these feelings. And she likes Jesse a lot. I mean, he's a great guy, but he's just not it. And she's good to have this baby. She found a pregnancy test in the pharmacy. She decided to take it because recently she'd been experiencing symptoms, like, for example, she was really, really late, and things that normally wouldn't make her puke were suddenly making her throw up. That didn't mean it didn't come as a surprise when she found out she was pregnant, but she wants to raise the baby with Ellie. And Ellie's all about that. I mean, she knows that Jesse is the father, but she at one point says, okay, so all 3 of us are going to have a baby. Cool. And I'm going to be a dad. Awesome. I mean, she genuinely seems excited for this opportunity. But then both girls are snapped back to reality. Cue Eminem. When they hear fighting going on from the radio that Dina took from the dead soldier. There's a commotion going on outside. One of the soldiers says that they were attacked by scars, about 12 people are wounded, and they're taking them to a place called Lake Hill. The soldier also mentions, make sure Nora's ready. And when Ellie hears that, her ears perk up because she knows that Nora will know where Abby is. Now they just have to find Lake Hill. They go up to the roof to see the damage that's being done to Seattle, and sure enough, in the distance, they see that there is a war being raged. But they're also able to figure out where Lake Hill is. And it's a ways, but at least now they know where they're headed. Ellie does tell Dina, hey, you don't have to go. I mean, things have changed now. You're pregnant. But there's no way Dina is abandoning Ellie at this point. She knows that things have changed. But some things haven't. And she's sticking with Ellie. Sticking right by her side. Now, we also get some backstory on the leader of the WLF. It's a guy named Isaac. 11 years earlier, he was working for Fedra. But he kind of felt like Fedra abandoned him via their principles, via their practices, so he decided to switch teams and join the rebels. His final day as a Fedra officer, he threw a bunch of grenades into an armored vehicle, killing a bunch of the soldiers, and he joined the other side. He did spare one soldier. It was the only soldier in the armored vehicle that didn't seem like a total asshole, so he spared him. And after killing everybody else, he looked at the kid and said, hey, you gotta make a choice. And that kid chose to join the WLF. But fast forward to present day, Isaac is dealing with this war with the Scars. Turns out that these two groups had a truce, but that truce was broken. It's not clear who exactly broke the truce. If you ask the Scars, they say it's the WLF. If you ask the WLF, they say it was the Scars. But at this point, they are in a full-out war with each other. And Isaac has no problem torturing a Scar that they found. The thing is, the Scar is not talking. No matter how much Isaac tries, Scar won't give up any information. He stays true to the notion that there is this prophet that watches over him and is going to protect him. And he's willing to die than give Isaac any information. And Isaac finally realizes this when the Scar looks at him and said, every single day, there's a member of the WLF that leaves you guys and joins us. But there is never a day where a Scar leaves us and joins you guys. And at that point, Isaac knows this guy ain't giving up any information, and he just shoots him. In episode 5, the girls wake up in Seattle on day 2, and now they just need to formulate a plan. Dina starts looking over a map to try to triangulate the best option for them to get past the WLF soldiers undetected and to get where they need to go. It takes her a little bit, but she does find a proper path. The patrols for the WLF leave a little bit of an opening, and there's one long building that is right in the middle of it. Dina figures that if they can get into that building and get through it, they will get by the WLF completely undetected, and then they'll be on their way. But Ellie asks her, wait, why aren't they going to that long building? Doesn't make a lot of sense. And what they both figure is it's got to be riddled with infected. But this is really the best option for them. It's to just risk it. Because it's either go up against the infected or go up against the WLF. And they like their chances better against the infected. So that's the route they're going to take. Then it should just be a straight shot to the hospital where Dina tells Ellie that she should be able to find Nora on the second floor of the hospital. And the reason why she knows that is because the WLF never turn off their radios. They've left it on this entire time, and Dina's just been listening to it. Initially, Ellie thinks that that's dumb, but Dina mentions how the group that the WLF are fighting, the Scars, are probably a lot like the Amish. They use bow and arrows, they don't use guns, and they might just disregard all technology together. So keeping the radios open might not be the dumbest thing if you know that your enemy isn't going to use radios. Of course, what the WLF wasn't banking on is a group from Jackson overhearing them and being able to coordinate everywhere they go. That's basically what Dina's been doing. Both Dina and Ellie figure that they probably should leave during the day in order to get to the location by nightfall, and they start making their way through downtown Seattle. While they're doing that, they're discussing things like what Dina's going to name the baby, but then they come across a horrific sight. There's a mural with a woman who looks to be a saint. Under it is the written message, "Feel her love," and under that is graffitied, "Feel this." And there's just a bunch of Scars who are gunned down. It's pretty jarring for both Ellie and Dina, and it's a reminder of how dangerous both groups truly are. So Ellie once again gives Dina the option to go back to the theater, sit this one out. But Dina's not going to do that. She starts telling Ellie about the first person she ever killed, which is something that Ellie never asked about, but Dina thinks this is a pretty timely story for what they're going through. When Dina was little, she lived in a cabin with her mom and her sister, and she always begged to go outside, but her mom said no, it was too dangerous. And one day, Dina decided at the age of 8, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to bring a gun. No one's going to mess with me. And no one messed with her. When she got back to her house, a raider had shown up and was messing with her mom and her sister. Dina could hear their screams, and she went to go grab the gun, but she was 8 years old. She was fumbling with it. When the raider turned around, he was shocked, and he was even more shocked when Dina pulled the trigger, killing him. She lost her mom and her sister that day, but she took the life of the guy who ruined hers. And Dina's message to Ellie is she can't imagine what she would have done had she let that guy go, had that guy escaped. She would have hunted him down. And it doesn't matter what Joel did. He didn't deserve what happened to him. She does give Ellie the option, telling her, look, I will go home if you want, but I'll keep going if you want. Just know if I die, it's on me. But what do you want me to do? And Ellie decides, all right, let's do this together. By nightfall, they reach the long abandoned building, and they head inside undetected by the WLF. It looks to be going just as Dina expected. They just need to get through the building, and they should be home free. They know they're going to encounter some infected, but before they travel deep into the building, Dina tells Ellie, look, using our guns is a last-ditch resort, because as soon as we start firing, it's going to trigger WLF soldiers to the fact that we're here. They're going to come after us, and then we're going to have infected and soldiers. So if we get bogged down, run. And Ellie says, yeah, I got it. But Dina has to remind her that Ellie's first, second, and third options are always fire a gun. And in this situation, fire a gun is going to be truly a last-ditch option. And once again, Ellie says, I got it. They then start making their way deeper into the building, and it's eerie. I mean, there's nothing. They get to a big, giant, opened-up room, and still nothing. Or at least they think. They start hearing some things, and when they look over, they see a stalker, a.k.a. a very smart infected, just like one of the ones that Ellie encountered in the grocery store. At first, she's a little freaked out. I mean, she thought that, it was a one-off, maybe, possibly, but now clearly not. But it is just one of them. So she formulates a plan with Dina, saying, we'll see which one is following the other, and then we'll just come behind it and kill it, and we should be good. The problem is they're not good. Because there isn't just one. When they look around the building, they are completely surrounded. There's about 12 of them, and there's only 2 of them. The odds aren't great, and Ellie knows it. So she looks over, and she sees an electrical cage, and she tells Dina, you run over there and you lock yourself in. I can get bit as many times as possible. I'll survive. But you're pregnant, so go. Run now, and I'll try to take care of as many of them as I can. And since this is a last-ditch resort, nobody blinks an eye when Ellie starts firing a gun. And when Dina gets to that cage, she's able to lock herself in, but she's quickly surrounded by a bunch of infected, and she starts firing her own gun. Both girls, though, are very nervous. Their shot isn't great, and it's not long before Ellie is pinned down by infected, and they start biting at her. But then all of a sudden, the infected start getting shot one by one, and it's not by Ellie, and it's not by Dina. It's by somebody completely different who came out of nowhere. This mystery person starts killing all the infected around them, helping Ellie up and revealing himself as Jesse. Big surprise to both Ellie and Dina. First thing he does is check Ellie to make sure she wasn't bit. And of course Ellie was bit, but Dina says, no, she wasn't bit. I saw her. She's fine. But now the trio need to get the hell out of there because the gunfire did in fact alert the WLF to their existence and they're coming in. So Dina, Ellie, Jesse, they flee. They're chased by the WLF, and they run right into a forest. And the interesting thing is, the WLF don't chase after them. The group overhears the WLF soldiers say, hey, we don't go in there, but there are 3 armed, they're not scars, and they're in the forest. The trio don't know exactly why the WLF soldiers didn't go into the forest, but they know it's probably not a good sign. Either way, though, they need to find their way out. As they make their way deeper into the forest, Jesse explains that he and Tommy left Jackson on their own to come after both Ellie and Dina, knowing full well that Ellie and Dina probably wouldn't survive this trip. Jesse and Tommy ended up splitting up with the idea that they would rendezvous in the morning. And the way that Jesse found both Ellie and Dina was he found the map that they left in the theater. So Jesse just wants to get through the forest, get back to the theater, meet up with Tommy, and go home the next day. He's not playing around either. He's pissed off. And when he says that they want to go back to Jackson the next day, Ellie pushes back on that. But before they can even have an argument about the topic, they overhear a commotion, and it's Scars. Now, they've seen what the WLF will do to Scars. Now they're getting a chance to see what Scars will do to the WLF. Because they've got a soldier, they've got a noose around his neck, he's begging for his life, pleading with them, saying, I know what Isaac's up to, but the Scars don't care. They gut him. And Dina, Jesse, and Ellie all watch it go down, horrified. But not long after, they're caught. They hear a bunch of whistles, and an arrow comes shooting out of the forest, and it lands right in Dina's thigh. Ellie looks at Jesse and says, all right, get her out of here. We got to split up. I'll make sure that the Scars chase after me. And that's exactly what she does. She starts running through the forest, firing a gun, and drawing all the Scars to her and allowing Jesse to hopefully get away with Dina and get her to safety. Because this is at night, Ellie is able to evade the Scars until eventually they give up. But as Ellie is finding her way out of the forest, she notices the hospital, and she has to take this opportunity. She sneaks into the hospital. She goes to exactly where Dina said that Nora would be, and sure enough, there's Nora, cleaning a bunch of medical supplies. And Ellie comes out of the shadows and says, put it down now. Do you know who I am? And she can see from Nora's face that Nora does, in fact, recognize her. Ellie asks Nora, okay, all right, you know who I am. Where's Abby? And at first, Nora plays dumb, saying, yeah, I have no idea. But Ellie doesn't believe that. Nora points out that they could have killed Ellie. And Ellie says, you probably should have. I'll ask you again, though. Where is Abby? Nora again tells her that she doesn't know, but she starts apologizing for everything that happened, saying that nobody should have to witness what they witnessed with Joel. She never quite apologizes for pinning Ellie down and forcing her to watch, but she mentions how sometimes at night she can hear his screams. But then she does a complete 180 and says, yeah, that bitch had what's coming to him. And it takes Ellie completely by surprise, and Nora throws a pan of water at her, distracting her, and runs off. Ellie goes chasing after her through the hospital. Nora, trying to alert anybody, hey, we have an intruder, shoot her. But Ellie isn't shot. She just continues to track Nora down until finally Nora is trapped. There's nowhere to go except an elevator shaft, and she has to jump in. Ellie, who is a little bit behind Nora at this point, does catch her in the elevator shaft, and she starts shooting her, and there's only one place for Nora to go. It's the hospital basement. And that's bad news for just about anybody except Ellie. And the reason for that is, a while back, the WLF was exploring the hospital. The person in charge sent her son down to the basement to explore and see what was up, and at first it seemed normal, but then all of a sudden he started choking. The woman in charge asked him, hey, are you all right? Have you been bit? And he said, no, it's in the air. This whole place is covered in cordyceps. You've got to seal it off. You've got to seal all of us in here. And because of that, nobody in the WLF ever went in the basement until now, because Nora didn't have an option. Ellie, of course, has no idea about this story, so she starts slowly following Nora's footsteps into the basement, and that's when she sees that the whole place is covered in cordyceps. But she also sees that the initial group that was sent down there is still trapped down there, still alive, still attached to the wall, and she even sees the guy who said, trap us in here. His name was Leon. But Ellie ain't going after Leon. She's going after Nora. And she finds her, choking. Nora proudly says, you're an idiot. I mean, you just killed us both. The spores, they're in the air, and now we're infected. But Ellie, who's got a gun pointed at her, says, oh, are we infected? Are we? And that's when Nora realizes that Ellie is the one. She's the immune one. Ellie once again asks, where's Abby? And Nora, shocked, says, don't you know what he did? Ellie tells her, I don't care. And Nora is mortified, says, you don't care? Joel shot the only man that could have made a cure from you. And that man was Abby's father. He shot him and he didn't care. And Ellie lowers the gun and tells Nora, yeah, I know. Where's Abby? But Nora won't give up the information. And that's when Ellie decides to try and take it. Or at the very least, inflict as much pain on Nora as Nora and her group inflicted on Joel. She finds a pipe and she starts beating on Nora's legs, inflicting a ton of pain, asking her over and over again, where is Abby? Where is Abby? Where is Abby? In episode 6, we finally find out what happened between Ellie and Joel that fractured their relationship. It really all starts out after they arrived at Jackson. Ellie was 15. Joel celebrated her birthday by getting a cake from Seth and surprising her with her own guitar that he basically built from scratch. Fast forward a year later, and Joel surprised her with a museum trip that he found. It was a science museum. They had dinosaurs, they had all kinds of exhibits, and the big exhibit that year was space travel. And because they were the only ones to visit that museum, Ellie was able to actually put on the suit. It was pretty cool. Life was pretty good with the two until Ellie turned 17. That's when she started acting out a bit, and I use that term very loosely. I think she was just kind of being a normal teenager, but Joel wasn't prepared for it. He came home early to surprise her with a cake, but what he found was Ellie fooling around with a girl, smoking weed, and Ellie had just gotten a fresh tattoo. It was a lot for Joel to take in. I mean, up until this point, Joel thought that Ellie was straight. So the fact that she was fooling around with a girl, that was pretty jarring for him. But then it was the rest of it. The tattoo, the weed, it was a lot, and it caused a pretty big fight. And at that point, Ellie had kind of had enough. She took exception to the fact that Joel referred to her fooling around with a girl as experimentation when Ellie said, no, it's not. And Ellie decided she needed her own space, and that space would be in the garage. So that night, she started trying to drag her mattress out into the pouring rain to sleep in the garage, but Joel stopped her and said, no, you can't do this. This is ridiculous. It's pitch black, it's raining out, and you may not like my rules, but this is my house. And Ellie had to remind him, no, it's not. You don't actually own anything. They gave you this house. They gave us this house. Look, I'd like to tell you I was sorry for what I did today, but I'm not. And that's when Joel decided to agree that maybe it is a good thing for Ellie to have her own space. He told her, just give me a few days to clean up the garage and I'll have it all prepared for you. They seemed to patch things up right then and there, and Joel even wanted to see her tattoo, which was a decorative moth. It had kind of become Ellie's thing. The tattoo, of course, was to cover up the burn mark that she made that was supposed to cover up the bite mark. Joel did ask her, what's up with the moths exactly? And Ellie told him that she read about it in a book on dreams and it just seemed symbolic. And he thought that it was because moths bring about change and growth. But when he talked to Gail about it, she said, no. That would be butterflies. No, moths, if you believe in that stuff, that signals death. Fast forward 2 years later, and Ellie was 19 years old at this point. Her relationship with Joel was still pretty solid, but she was starting to question exactly what happened in Salt Lake City. So much so that she actually wrote down a handful of questions that she was going to ask Joel just so she could understand it better, understand what happened. But as she was practicing giving Joel this speech, Joel knocked on the door and told her some good news. Now that she was 19, she was finally getting what she wanted. She was going out on patrol. It was going to start out on a pretty boring patrol. In fact, it was the safest patrol, and it was going to be with Joel. Wasn't exactly the action that Ellie wanted, but hey, she was finally on patrol. The action, however, came a little bit later when they got a radio call that a group of them were bogged down by a bunch of infected and they needed backup, and Joel and Ellie were the closest to the group. Initially, Joel told Ellie, go back to Jackson, but Ellie said, no, Joel, I'm not your daughter right now. I'm your partner, and we have to go save them. Joel thought about it. It made a lot of sense, and the two headed to see what was going on with this infected and the group. And unfortunately, the group was attacked pretty good by the infected, and only one of them was left. And that one person was Eugene. Eugene had just freshly been bitten, and he knew that it meant he was going to die. But his one request was to go back to Jackson, stand outside of the gate, and talk to his wife one last time. Say goodbye. And Joel didn't want him to. It wasn't like he didn't feel for the guy, but rules are rules, and this guy was just bit. They had no idea how long it was going to be before he turned. Ellie, however, being fresh to this whole thing, decided to give Eugene a little bit of a test. She had him stick out his hand and count to 10. And when he was able to do it, Ellie proclaimed, "Joel, he's got time. We can do this. Just tie him up. Let's take him back to Jackson so he could say goodbye to his wife." And Joel relented. He told Ellie, "All right, go get the horses. Bring them down the trail. I'll start walking with him. We'll meet up with you." Right before she left, though, she stopped and looked at Joel. They didn't have to exchange words. It was pretty clear what Ellie wanted. She wanted reassurance that Joel wasn't going to kill Eugene, and Joel said, "I promise." But he broke that promise. He ended up leading Eugene to a clearing and telling him, "Eugene, I can't let you go back, man. If you have anything to say to your wife, I'll relay the message for you. But your life's going to have to end here." Eugene begged him. He begged to just see Gail one last time, but Joel wasn't about to break the rules. When Ellie finally did arrive with the horses a little bit later, and she saw what happened, she was mortified. She knew that Joel had just lied to her, and she knew that Joel had killed Eugene. And all Joel could say for himself was, "I'm sorry." On the way back to Jackson, dragging Eugene's body behind the horse, Joel tried to plead his case to Ellie, saying how he had no choice, but Ellie didn't believe him. She knew that Joel had a choice, and he made that choice. But after Joel had betrayed her, she decided to return the favor once they got back to Jackson. They called for Gail to see what happened to her husband, and Joel lied to her. He told Gail that Eugene was bit. He said how much he loved his wife, how much he was going to miss her, and he was the one who decided to take his own life. And while Gail was crying in Joel's arms, Ellie spoke up and said, "No, that's not true. He's lying to you. He killed him. He shot him right in the head. Eugene had time. He could have been back here. He could have been saying goodbye, but Joel took that from you." To which Gail slapped Joel in the face, and their relationship was never the same. That was 9 months before the New Year's Eve ball. The ball where Joel had shoved Seth to the ground for saying some inappropriate things about Ellie and Dina, and Ellie essentially telling Joel to go home because he was embarrassing himself. But when Ellie got home that night, they decided to have a conversation about what happened. It started out with Ellie telling him, "I can take care of Seth. I didn't need that from you." And then it kind of got into the relationship with Dina and whether or not Dina was Ellie's girlfriend now, and Ellie just scoffed at that, saying, "No, it was a kiss, nothing more." But then Ellie got real with him. She turned to him and said, "You lied to me. You looked me in the eyes and you lied, and it was the same face that you gave me when we were leaving Salt Lake City. So I'm going to ask you one last time, what happened in Salt Lake City? And if you lie to me, we're done forever." And through a series of questions, Joel came clean. It wasn't easy for him, but Ellie learned the truth, that there were no other immune people, that Joel killed them all, and that, yes, they were able to create a cure, but it would have resulted in Ellie dying, and Ellie was okay with that. She screamed at Joel, "Then my life would have had a purpose, but you took that from me." I mean, she was legitimately pissed, and she called Joel selfish for doing what he did. But Joel didn't back down. He said, "Look, I love you. And if I had to redo that day in Salt Lake City, I would do it again. I would kill all of them, and I would save you. And hopefully one day you understand. Hopefully one day you have a kid of your own, and you'll understand exactly why I did what I did. And I understand I'm going to live with the consequences because you're going to turn away from me. But I don't regret it. Not at all." And it seemed like Ellie was about to turn away from him. I mean, she was angry at what he did. Angry about the fact that she was lied to about it. But she didn't turn away from him. She told Joel, "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for what you did, but I'm willing to try." So when Ellie had told Jesse that they had patched things up the night before when Ellie and Jesse went out on that patrol, she wasn't lying. They really did patch things up. And when Joel was murdered by Abby, Ellie and Joel were in a really good place. Or at least a much better place than they were 24 hours prior. In episode 7, Isaac and the WLF are gearing up for a big attack. There's just one problem. Abby and most of her crew are missing. Elise starts telling Isaac this, and Isaac gets really concerned, and Elise can't quite figure out why Isaac cares so much about Ellie. And that's when he has to sit her down and say, look, what we're doing tonight, there's a pretty good chance you're going to die. And there's an even better chance I die. And if that happens, who leads those guys out there? Because despite their badass name, they're sheep. They need a leader. And that was supposed to be Abby. So that's why we need Abby. Of course, they aren't the only ones searching for Abby. So is Ellie. And after dealing with Nora, she heads back to the theater. Dina was recovering from her injury. Jesse just had to rip the damn thing out, but she's going to survive. And as soon as Ellie arrives, she goes to check on her. Both Dina and Jesse were really concerned about where Ellie went. She didn't tell anybody. But now that it's just the two of them, Ellie tells Dina everything. She tells her that she went after Nora. She basically forced her to talk. She only said 2 words, wheel and whale. She has no idea what that means. And then she left her, but she essentially left her for dead. She then reveals her big secret to Dina. The reason why Abby and her crew came after Joel. The whole story with Salt Lake City, how Joel slaughtered Abby's father and all the doctors that wanted to operate on her, all of that. Dina does ask her, did you know this when they killed Joel? But she says, no, I didn't. And it's a lot for Dina to process, so she just tells Ellie, we got to get home. And the next day, that's what they plan to do. Jesse and Ellie start packing up because they have to go meet Tommy at the rendezvous point, which is going to be a bookstore. And while they do that, Dina's going to stay in the theater because she's in no shape really to go anywhere. Jesse, though, continues to give Ellie a lot of attitude. It's pretty clear he's not happy with her. And as they make their way through the streets of Seattle, he finally stops her and says, look, last night, Dina said she couldn't die. Not that she didn't want to die, she couldn't die. And then she didn't take alcohol when I offered it to her. I mean, when have you ever known her to not take a drink? Now, something's up. And Ellie, who obviously knows what's up, plays dumb. But Jesse goes on. He says, I see the way that you guys look at each other. I'm not dumb. I bet you she tells you things that she wouldn't tell me, like she's pregnant. And after a few seconds, Ellie just says, damn it, which admits to the fact that, yes, Dina is pregnant. And that's something that Jesse didn't actually know. And Ellie starts trying to tell him, hey, nothing's going to change between us. But he cuts her off and says, okay, how about this? I'm going to be a father, which means that I can't die. But because of you, we're in a war zone. So how about we skip the apologies and we just get me and my kid out of here, okay? And they continue walking through the streets. As they do so, they see another mural that says feel her love, but this time there's another woman depicted. Ellie actually mentions the fact that there's another one? And Jesse says, yeah, I guess so, but he's not really preoccupied with it. He just wants to get to the bookstore. And after a little bit of a walk, they're not too far away when they hear gunshots and they hide. The gunshots, though, weren't directed at them. The gunshots were from the WLF, and they were chasing a Scar. And as Jesse and Ellie hide, they're watching this Scar all by himself, a teenage boy, get surrounded by WLF members and assaulted, stripped down, and taken away. And while this was going on, Ellie wanted to go after him. Ellie wanted to help this kid. Maybe Ellie saw herself in this kid, alone, needing a savior. Either way, Jesse continued to stop her, saying, no, don't. And even after the kid was taken away, Ellie decides, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go save this person. And Jesse once again stops her, trying to talk reason into her and reminding her, there are 6 of them, there are 2 of us. Ellie fights back and reminds him that that person is just a kid. He needs help. But Jesse says, I'm not dying out here. Not for a war that I'm not fighting. They're shooting each other, they're killing each other, but they're not after us. We need to get out of here. This isn't our war. So come on. And they continue on to the bookstore. They do arrive a little while later, and Tommy's not there yet. They figure they'll just post up shop, wait for him to arrive. And while they do so, they decide to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Dina being pregnant. Jesse tells Ellie that he does love Dina, but maybe not the way that Ellie loves Dina. He goes on to tell a story about how this traveling group from Alberta came through, and he fell in love with one of the girls, and he was ready to go and run off. I mean, there was a big part of him that wanted to run off with this girl and live his life with this girl, but he didn't because of the fact that he needed to be with the community of Jackson. Jackson took him in, and he's looked at as the heir apparent of running Jackson. So he basically put his needs aside for the community. That's his message to Ellie. You need to put your needs aside for the betterment of the community. But before she can tell him to pound sand, they hear on the radio that there is gunshots from a sniper. And they know that that's not a WLF member, that must be Tommy. They hear where the gunshots are coming from. Jesse looks at the map, and they figure out where Tommy's located. Now it's just a matter of seeing how far that is in terms of like eyesight. So they head up to the roof, they look around, and Jesse locates the building where the gunshots are coming from, where he thinks that Tommy is located. But something else caught Ellie's attention. It was a Ferris wheel. A Ferris wheel located right next to an aquarium. And suddenly, Nora's last comments, wheel, whale, they make a lot of sense. She's now convinced that Abby is in the aquarium. And she doesn't really care about Tommy. She wants to go after Abby. But when she brings this up to Jesse, Jesse reminds her, we need to get Tommy. And this starts a giant fight. Ellie telling Jesse that this is what Tommy would want. Jesse telling her that while Tommy's fine now, the WLF called for backup and it's only a matter of time before he's surrounded. They need to go help him. But when Ellie says, you were 3 votes away from following me, Jesse drops a bombshell on her and says, no, I wasn't. I voted against going because it's not what's best for the community. And Ellie loses it. She starts screaming at Jesse, my community was murdered in front of me and I had to watch. So screw you and your community. And the two go their separate ways. For Ellie, she knows she needs to get a boat. That's the only way to get to the aquarium in time. So she heads down to the marina. She arrives at night. But while she's heading to the dock, she sees 2 people on the dock. She lifts up her gun. She's about to shoot them. And then she sees that a ship is coming. But it's not just one ship. It's a full-on armada. I mean, I'm talking like 7 ships. All coming to the dock to pick up supplies. And they're led by Isaac. That mission that he was talking about, well, it's going down that night. Ellie, however, she just lays low until they all leave. She grabs the last remaining boat, and she heads off to the aquarium. The one issue is the boat isn't very big, and the sea is choppy as hell because there's a storm going on, and it's not long until a giant wave knocks her out of the boat, and she washes up on shore to a local island, where as she's trying to get her bearings together, she sees a young Scar boy just standing there. And he alerts adults to the fact that they have company, and within minutes, Ellie is being dragged into the woods to be hanged and killed. And it's ironic for Ellie because she was ready to save a Scar boy just hours earlier, and here she is being sentenced to death, even though she's telling them, I'm not WLF. They don't care. I mean, even the little boy gives the order to kill her. So they hang her up. And Ellie would have died had it not been for an alert that the town that all the Scars are living in is under attack. So they drop Ellie, and they run to go help their fellow Scars. And that attack obviously is being orchestrated by Isaac and his group. Now with Ellie in the clear, she goes back to the shore, she grabs her boat, flips it on the right side, and she heads right back to the aquarium. She's able to get inside, and she starts creeping around corners looking for Abby, and she doesn't find Abby. But what she does find is Mel and Owen. And they're in the middle of an argument where Mel doesn't want Owen to do whatever he's planning on doing. And for Ellie, she eavesdrops on the conversation, and she hears the name Abby. It's obvious that Owen and Mel know exactly where Abby is. So Ellie pops up out of the corner. Immediately, Owen recognizes her. And he tries to curry favor by reminding her, hey, I saved you. Like, I let you live. But Ellie doesn't care. She demands to know where Abby is, and both Owen and Mel claim that they don't know. Ellie calls them out on that lie, saying, you do. You were just talking about her. So I want you to bring that map over here. I want you to point to where she is. And then I want you to come over here. And you're going to point. And it better match up. For Owen, he encourages Mel not to do it, saying she's just going to kill us anyway. But Ellie yells back, no, I'm not, because I'm different than you. Now, let's go. Bring the map over here. You've got 5 seconds. But that's when Owen reaches for a gun. Ellie instinctively fires a shot off, and it hits Owen in the neck, killing him instantly, but it also hits Mel. Now, it's not a direct shot, but she drops to the floor, and she's bleeding out. That's when Ellie notices exactly what she just did. She fired a shot, and she hit a pregnant woman. And Mel begs Ellie to cut the baby out of her, saving her child. But this is a lot for Ellie, and she doesn't know how to do that. And Mel says, no, I'll talk you through it. But Mel's only got about 30 seconds, and before Ellie can actually plunge the knife into her, Mel's dead. And that's when Ellie breaks down. Because Ellie never meant to kill somebody that she didn't deem was worthy of it. And for Mel, she didn't do anything to deserve this. And the child definitely didn't do anything to deserve this. So for Ellie, she just sits there beating herself up until eventually she's actually found by Tommy. Tommy sees the aftermath of everything that happened, and he picks up Ellie and he brings her back to the theater. It's clear that when Ellie gets back, she's still shook from exactly what she did. For the group, though, they're planning on leaving back for Jackson the next day. Tommy and Jesse sit down, they map it out, and that's when Ellie has a seat right near them, and Tommy can see that she is visibly still upset about what she did, and Tommy tries to make her feel better, telling her, hey, they got what was coming to them. They knew the life they chose, that kind of thing. But for Ellie, she's still not happy about it. She still blames herself, and it was something that she's going to live with for the rest of her life, killing a pregnant woman. Tommy decides to leave both Jesse and Ellie alone and go pack some more supplies, and that gives Jesse and Ellie a chance to just kind of bury the hatchet a little bit. Jesse reveals that he decided to go back for Ellie because what he realized was that if he was out there, Ellie would move heaven and earth to save him. And it's true, she would. But as they're patching up their relationship, they hear a commotion outside and they rush to go see what it is. Jesse's the first one through the door, and he's shot immediately and killed. That's when Ellie, who is hiding at this point, hears Abby's voice yelling, "Get up, get up." And she's got Tommy on the ground at gunpoint. And Tommy tells Ellie, no, just run. But Ellie's not about to let Tommy die. Ellie stands up, realizing that Abby came here for her, and she says, hey, don't kill him. Don't kill him. You came here for me. I'm the one who killed your friends, not him. I was looking for you, and I did it. And for Abby, she is shocked. She never expected to see Ellie again, and she immediately recognizes her. She tells her, I let you live. I let you live, and this is what you did? As Ellie continues to beg for Tommy's life and for Tommy to be spared, Abby points the gun right at her and shoots her. But this is actually going to end with Seattle day one again, from Abby's perspective. She wakes up in the Seahawks stadium. That's where the WLF is located and headquartered, and you see just how big of an operation they have. I mean, it is a full-on army. And that is the end of Season 2 of The Last of Us. Thank you so much for getting this part of the recap. I really appreciate it. Consider becoming a member to the channel. That just kind of helps me stay above the poverty line. Or you can subscribe to the Patreon. Or you can buy like a shirt or mug or, whatever. But the one thing you can't do is just be mean in the comment section. Because I'm going to make mistakes, folks. I am a human being. And, you just keep it rolling. You move on. But no, seriously, I appreciate you guys sticking around for Season 2. And just know I'll be back for Season 3.